I'm delighted to be joined by Peter John, who's the editor of Newsquest. Now, we met when I was speaking at a Meet the Journalist event that I was hosting last week, and Peter came along to speak to some of the delegates, find some great stories, and we had a chat and said, I would love to interview you for Blue Boo to share with my community how they can approach you. So, Peter, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So we have a few questions that we'd love to ask you. First and foremost, before we dive straight in, tell us, Newsquest, for those that don't know, we know it's regional titles, so what areas, what newspapers do you look after?
Right, Newsquest is a national company. It's got newspapers across Britain, Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, Wales. It's one of the big regional newspaper groups. I am the regional editor for the Midlands South region, which covers mainly Worcester, Hereford, the Stourbridge area, and that's a mixture of daily, paid-for weeklies and free weekly newspapers.
And how long have you been in editor-in-chief there?
I have been in Worcester about 7 years.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So you know the area quite well. You've probably got very established contacts and everything.
Yep, pretty good.
So just, because today's interview is really to inspire business owners and entrepreneurs to approach you with a story and to find your sources. So just tell us, what do you look for first and foremost in a story?
Well, it depends what the person who's sending us the story is looking for and what their audience is. Yeah. But in general, human interest, quirky, unusual things are the sort of things that readers will be interested in. But I think people get too hung up on the news angle and what's going to sell the newspaper. We're community newspapers.
Yeah.
Large chunks of our paper, large sections of our papers are set aside for community organisations, businesses, voluntary organisations, charities, to talk to our readers and for them to explain what's going on. And, as journalists, we're the ones who have a look and see if we can polish it up. But actually, we are really, really interested in being that deliverer of information between the people who got it and the people who want to know about it.
So what's that percentage split, before we go on to how they should approach and what makes a story? What's the percentage split then? Because obviously you make your money through revenue, in terms of from advertising. So what's the percentage split in terms of editorial and stroke community news?
It can vary, and it depends what you call community news. The Hereford Times, which is one of our big papers, has a minimum of 6 pages dedicated to community news.
Okay.
Every week. But then, we set aside a health page, which is specifically for health organisations, the health service, the health trust, the local hospital, GP services.
Yeah.
St John's Ambulance use it to get through messages. We have business pages which are dedicated to business news. Now, a lot of business news isn't very interesting to the average reader, but a specialised avenue exists if you are a business whose prime aim is to talk to other people in the business community. Now, that's very different. That B2B type of communication is entirely different from, on a news page or on the front page of a newspaper. So whole sections of the paper are like that.
So in terms of then, from a business and a community, I'm guessing that most of the people that approach you, do you want them to have some sort of connection within the community?
Oh, well, absolutely. Ultimately, our USB is local.
Okay.
So they either have to be local, have local connections, or they have a story that is of specific interest to our local readership.
So where do they go wrong? Because a lot of business owners are quite scared to approach the media. They don't know how to write a press release. But like you say, you just really want the story. So, how should they approach you? Do you have a set template? Is it just a headline, a short overview? How kind of particular are you?
Well, first of all, get over that fear. Because actually the biggest issue is not about the quality of the press release that comes in. It's the fact that loads of people out there just don't see us as approachable. It's one of our failings as an industry that we don't make ourselves more approachable than we are at the moment, and we should. So get over the fear and talk to somebody, contact somebody and chat it through. But once you've got to the stage where you're submitting something, you need a headline.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a great headline or a bad headline. Journalists are looking at things very quickly and moving on very quickly, so they need very quickly to understand what the story is about. That to a certain extent helps them to decide whether it's news, whether it's specialised, etc. Sometimes it's about putting it in the right place. Pictures, absolutely. We need pictures all the time. All newspapers have a resource issue in terms of photographic. So if you have a picture that goes along with any submission, that's always very helpful.
And should they send the picture to you as a low res to start with, then a higher version? Should they follow up the story?
No, high res.
Straight away. Okay.
Always the high res, because if you give us a low res, the danger is we'll use the low res accidentally.
Right. Oh, okay. So that's interesting, because I've always been told don't send a high res picture because it'll, block up your inbox or could get stuck or anything. So you say send the high res straight away.
But don't send 20 high res images in an email. That will block up our inbox and it will block up our filters. But no. If you've got one or two high res images, just send them along with it. Short, sharp sentences, don't overwrite. Journalism is not about essay writing. It's not about novel writing. It's about passing on facts and information as quickly and as clearly as you can. So
what would you say is the amount of words on average for an average article? Let's say it's A for a community story and B for a B2B story.
A page lead in our newspapers is normally not much more than 350 words.
Right, okay.
If you think that you've got a story that is big enough, strong enough, and important enough to dominate any given page, 350 is about what you should be looking at. We normally trim stories down anyway, so if it's a bit over that, that's fine. Actually, if it gets much more than about 400, it starts to become a bit too long for us. And then if it's a picture story with just a bit of information about something that you've done, which is mainly illustrated by the picture, 150 words, something like that. Anywhere between 150 and 350 are good areas to be in.
And how close do you tend to work to deadline in terms of, let's pick one of your newspaper titles. If, let's say you put it to bed, when does one of your titles come out, for example?
Well, we're either daily in Worcester or the other titles are weekly.
Okay.
We have a production flow on the weeklies, which means that as soon as one of them is put to bed, we start working on the next one. So, don't leave it too late, basically. The earlier the better. If you're sending us news 2 or 3 days ahead of our publication date on a weekly, if it misses that, then the next time it's going to be printed is 10, 11 days out of date, at which point you've got a problem.
Yeah, it's an old story, isn't it?
Yeah, I would be working on the basis that if you get it in the first or second day after publication, it's got a much better chance of getting in.
And do your journalists and your team work across all newspapers, or do you have set journalists for individual newspapers?
It's a mixture of both.
Okay. So
we have... go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because it'd be good to understand. So do you have like a business editor and health and lifestyle editor? How does it work in terms of, what they look after?
Larger centres have some specialists. So we have a political reporter, we have an education reporter, we have a crime reporter. In the bigger centres, they would generate stories that would go across the titles. It is much more efficient for us to have journalists working across titles than it is exclusively on individual ones.
Yeah.
So actually, as an organisation now, we are always looking to see whether any story has an interest outside the story that was written for. And actually that's the benefit to the business community and people who are submitting information to us. In the old days, they might have submitted a story to the Worcester News and that's the only place it would go.
Yeah.
Now we would be looking to see, right, okay, that would work in Worcester. But actually, there are 3 or 4 other titles that it might work in as well, and that's really helpful for us.
Fantastic. So, obviously, like you said, people are a bit scared, and I think it's because, I don't know, we kind of hold journalists on a pedestal, you're a bit scary, we don't want to upset you, we don't know how to approach you. What is the best way to approach you? Is it via email? Should they pick up the phone? And obviously they need to grab your attention, but how would you like them to contact you? If let's say they had a story that they knew was relevant, that was breaking from a national point of view, and they knew they had a local and regional kind of take on it, would you welcome a phone call from that, or is it all email? How should they approach you?
No, I think if you've got what you would consider to be an urgent, important story, ring us up and talk to us. And that's a fantastic way of building an immediate relationship. But it's hard just to phone up a newspaper and say, I may have something of interest to you.
Yeah.
That may well be better off handled initially in an email with a press release, and then a follow-up call saying, did you get it? Was it any use to you?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't use to you, why? Just could you give me some understanding? It depends who you are. If you are a business owner and you're trying to do it yourself, that's probably the best way. Lots of people go through local PR agencies.
Yeah.
They would tend to try to build relationships through personal contact. But there's no harm asking, is there?
No, absolutely, and I think that's the key to it. A lot of business owners, some great if they can afford a PR agency, absolutely wonderful. But also as well, I've interviewed journalists before, and they, yes, of course, have great relationships with PR agencies, but they also like to go direct to source, especially if it's radio, TV, or if it's a daily newspaper, like you're saying, because they can turn the story around quite quickly, get to the right person. So you welcome them to contact you directly, whether it's via email or via telephone.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. And so what's the things not to do, Peter? Because, I talk about, you heard me talk last week about, really they want to kind of cover an advert, don't they? They want to cover up what the business is. They're not really telling you the story. So what's the key mistakes that people make? What would make a press release go straight into the bin? And what would make a press release for you to go, yeah, interested?
Something that comes in that's got a headline that's boring. That is full of jargon, that is talking to a specialist audience, not a general audience. Things that come in that have insistence and demand on them. People who contact us and tell us that, it's absolutely vital, important, and whatever, that this is covered, and try to make the news judgments for us.
Right, okay.
Those are some of the key ones. Getting that headline wrong is a key issue. We very quickly glance over a lot of press releases and emails that come into our desk.
Yeah.
They look like they're clumsy, they're badly worded, they're full of jargon. We assume the rest of it's going to be like that, and we sort them, put it to one side without really taking a close look at it. You've a bit like walking in a room, you've got a few seconds to make an impression.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same is true in an email and a press release. But in our case, we're not interested in the diplomacy, we're not interested in the looks. We're actually interested in those first few words in the headline that say something like, duck saved my child's life.
Yeah.
Wow. As opposed to whatever.
Yeah, okay. So how has it changed over the years for regional titles? Because obviously, we know the media has changed. We know that your resources have changed in terms of workforce in most media companies and media outlets. But also, it's changed digitally, from a printed, now to going online as well. How has it changed overall for you in terms of staff-wise now? Do you still have the same amount of staff that you had like 5 years ago?
No, actually, no. The resources across the industry have reduced. So all newspapers are working on the basis of fewer journalists in the newsroom, and all of them have more to do now because the newspapers have not particularly gone down in size, but now we're responsible for websites, for Facebook pages, for Twitter, etc. So one of the key things we're looking for is that once you do build a relationship with a newspaper like us, the closer that you can get to writing in our style, the quicker and easier it is for us to push it through our production system, the more reliant we become on you to help us produce the content of the paper. But the other thing, I think websites clearly have different priorities and pressures. They have a slightly different style about them, which I actually don't think people who are submitting information to us should worry about too much.
Okay.
I think one of the really key issues and big issues is that one of the great contact and communication routes now is social media.
Yeah.
And a lot of our stories now come via social media, either because people are sending them to us or because we're looking for them on social media.
Okay. So on your own social media pages, or you're connecting out of, onto other social media accounts as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, sometimes we are, we're spotting something that we think, that would make a really interesting story. And often, most of the time, more human interest, because people talk about themselves and their human interactions on Facebook and Twitter. So a lot of human interest stories come that route. But it's actually quite a good way for businesses and local organisations to supply us with stuff that's very accessible to us.
Yeah, and you talk about, just going back to, just before we talk about social media, you talk about the style. One of the things that I've advised my community to do before, I'm not sure how you think about this, is to probably read your newspapers, like you say, and get a view for the way that you write, the style, the headlines, how you kind of write. It gives them a good heads up, really, to how to kind of outline something for you.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that we have with a lot of medium to larger organisations who are looking for publicity from us is that they don't particularly do their homework very well about what we do and why we do it, and also they don't particularly do their homework about who our audience is and what audience they are interested in. So one of the things that will happen is that they will supply us with stuff that is of interest to us, but actually probably ends up in the wrong part of the paper, or on the wrong platform, going to the wrong audience for them. If you are interested in business-to-business communication, why do you want to make it sexy and get onto the front page of the paper? You only actually want the chief executives, owners, business owners or whatever, of a limited number of people who've got a specialised interest in that message to read it, to respond, and to help you develop your business. So I think there's one of the key things is spend a little time researching what we are as an organisation, what platforms we are, and what our audience is, and then choose your point of attack, if you like.
Yeah, that's really good, because PR is not an ego thing, is it? It's there for the end reason. You're trying to reach an audience, like you say. You've got to match the audience. So if the local community isn't the audience, there's no point, really, is there?
Yeah, it is, and I also think that if you understand the local paper, what I say to people is that, look, we do news. News is news.
Yeah.
It's either news or it isn't. It's somebody's subjective judgment, but at the end of the day, that's a bit of a lottery. However, we do community news pages. What do you do in the community that you can almost guarantee that you can send us something we'll use? Yeah. We do health pages. Do you do anything for health?
Yeah.
Do you raise money for charity? Do you want your charity stuff on the business page? Yeah. Or do you want your charity stuff somewhere else that people are reading? Because actually, you're not trying to deliver a message about how good your business is in terms of efficiency and productivity and profitability. You're just trying to pass on a message about what a good neighbour you are as a business. Yeah. So your audience is entirely different. Then you've got the business pages. I think one of the most underused spaces in a paper that people very, very rarely think about for their own profile and branding is the letters pages.
Yeah.
You have expertise, the business, in some things. Why do you hide your light under a bushel? Why don't you write a letter saying the latest government policy won't work and here's why? Because I've been doing this for 40 years and I've seen this not work in the past. So if you know what we do, you get much better at understanding what ticks our boxes.
That's a great tip. I mean, obviously, I was going to come on to that as well to say, you were saying that if they approach you in the right way, they match your style, and obviously they're helpful, and that you almost become to rely on them. It's a win-win kind of relationship. So, do you have experts? Do you have like an expert directory? How do you communicate with people that you'll go to people for whether it's manufacturing, whether it's automotive, whether it's health?
We have a number of experts that we've built up contacts with over the past, mainly organisations, in business terms, mainly Chamber of Commerce, FSB, drilling down below the organisational level. So within the Chamber of Commerce, we know that people have head up their IT sections and whatever. So we know all of them. But I mean, one of the things that lots of newspapers do is have columnists. I mean, I think the last time I checked, we have about 35 columnists on the Worcester News.
Okay, so these are contributors that write regular articles in, and that's what I was going to ask next. Do you have contributors?
Yeah, we do, and most of them are experts in their field, either that or they have very good opinions and writing styles within sections of interest. So that will vary between, we have 5 columns, one a day during the week on the Worcester News on the business page.
Yeah.
But we have a mums and dads column in our family pages. So all of those are things that we do, partly because it's good for us in resource terms. It helps fill the space on the pages with interesting advice and information for our audience. But partly because it does mean that the paper has a more varied voice than just us, just the journalist. So, and where do we get them from? Actually, we get them because if people approach us and say, I could do a column, do you want it?
And that's the scary bit, Peter. People think that you've gone out to source these people, but they can approach you as the expert, can't they? They only need to understand their industry, be passionate about it, and obviously show that they're established. But they don't need to be having a massive influence across the UK. They just need to be an influence in their community, don't they, with what they do?
That's right. But to make it work, they need to have a look at what we do and say, what I write, what I know about would fit in there. So we get a lot of people who come to us and say, I'd love to write a column, and I say, but I've got nowhere to put that.
Yes.
You may be an expert in Caribbean crabs, but actually I don't have anywhere in the paper where I can have a columnist writing about Caribbean crabs every day.
Yes.
But if you want to do a feature on exotic wildlife that can be trained and kept in your bedroom, I might use that on the family pages as something for parents and children to read about.
Yeah.
So, understand what we are and who our audience is, and you have a better sales pitch.
Fantastic. And so in terms of then your kind of future moving forward, how do you see the press going? Because like you say, it's all gone online now as well. It's very digital. You're looking, you've got your Facebook groups, you've got your website, you obviously got Twitter and everything, and obviously you've got the most important thing, which is your newspaper. How do you see things changing in the coming years with print?
It depends on the communities that you're in and the size of the operation that you're in, so it'll vary. I think undoubtedly more daily newspapers will turn to weekly. Okay. Sales losses will continue, although there's a little bit of evidence that the sales losses are slowing down. Doesn't mean that they're stopping, but the trend is maybe a little bit more slowly as we get more to a core readership.
Yeah.
I think some of our weekly newspapers have decades left in them. Some of them will shut because they don't.
Yeah.
People's lifestyles are changing. So what's happening to our business has got nothing to do with us. It's about people changing the way they live their lives and how they access news and information, and actually, to a certain extent, what they consider to be news nowadays. A lot of them are now being fed by their friends' Facebook.
Yes.
And they consider that to be news, and who's to argue with them that it isn't?
Yeah.
The model for us is fewer and fewer papers, smaller papers, growing websites, growing website audiences, growing advertising revenues. But I think one of the issues that none of us have got our heads around is the pace of change is so great now, where social media sits in that mix going forward.
Yeah.
Because we've almost thought internet and websites will be the future of local media, and they may still well be, but that whole mobile social media news scenario is gathering a lot of pace at the moment. That's the bit that's hard to work out, I think.
Yeah, I think there's still, I very much am, because I was my age, I'm very traditional in that I love to look through a local newspaper to see what's going on, to look at house prices, see what's going on in the area, see what's coming up, and just kind of getting a feel for what's going on. But my daughter wouldn't dream of it, so it's obviously just a generation kind of thing, isn't it? That you, like you say, they're on Facebook, Snapchat, or whatever, Instagram, following their news. It's just in 10 years' time, I suppose we've just got to review how it's going to work overall. Okay, so you use experts, which is brilliant. Thank you, and that's really helpful to know that how to contact you as a contributor, because obviously, it's a win-win scenario. So you say you find your stories via social media, and then people will approach you, you will approach them. What would you say is the split? So what is the split in that you're going out, to get the stories, and how much do you forward plan kind of thing?
We do a lot of forward planning. Lots of news is still based around events. Lots of news is still based around courts, councils, inquests. It's about, party political manifestos. It's about, we know that these people are going to launch this, they're going to do that. We've planned it. We have a PR and marketing campaign that's going to start here. An awful lot of that is happening all the time. So that's the staple of the newspaper.
Yeah.
Press releases come in out of the blue to a certain extent, but I don't know. I've never looked at it. I would suggest that on the news pages, 25-30% now is coming at us via social media.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah. Brilliant. And it's like you say, it's good to know that you guys are obviously active on social media, and so if someone was quite a bit scared maybe to approach you, that'd be a good place for them to start. Connect with on your Facebook page, on your website, Twitter, and start kind of connecting with you and building relationships with the individual journalists as well.
Yeah, it is. And, join our Facebook page, join in with the conversation, because one of the differences is that, our Facebook page, the newspaper's Facebook page, is organised by an individual who has their own voice.
Yeah.
They interact with the people who contact us. That quickly builds up a relationship.
Yeah.
We've had a social media editor who's left us for another job. And there was the wailing and weeping in the streets of Worcestershire because some of them had got really fond of her. They built a personal relationship with her.
Yeah.
And one of the great benefits of that is the trust that engenders between these journalists and members of the community, that, we're not out to get you.
Yes.
And you tell us the story and we'll contact you and we'll talk it through with you, and, we're not going to stab you in the back over it.
I think that's a really good point there, John. Peter, sorry, I need to call you John because it's Peter John. I think that's a really good point, because I think people sometimes are scared that their story might be misinterpreted, or like you say, you're out to get them, but you're really not. Obviously you're doing your job, and you will still investigate, and you will put your, your feedback on that story. You're not going to put everything down maybe that they write. You are entitled to give your kind of aspect to it, but you're working together, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I think what's really interesting about social media is that it makes our operation a bit more transparent, and people can actually almost see it develop from the moment that something happens on Facebook to the moment that it's on our Facebook page, it's on our website, and it's in print. You can almost trace the development of that story, and to a certain extent who we spoke to, who gave us the information, why they were giving us the information. It is a whole new world, and I thought the Manchester bombing was really interesting in the sense of the enormous role that social media played in the whole of around that event. It was just, it was a terrible, appalling thing to watch. But the journalist in me was really intrigued by the way that people were grabbing hold of social media and using it to shape what they wanted to happen.
Yes.
Out of that event, and the media were involved in it and were watching it, but actually were physically involved in it.
Yeah, I guess the media are more reactive now to communities than ever, really, aren't they? Whereas before they kind of led the communities, didn't they, with what they were doing? But because of social media and the way digital websites are and blogs and influencers, you are more reactive, I suppose, as well to the environment, aren't you?
Yeah, yes. Previously, we were pretty bad at understanding our communities in many cases. We could get some of the top line stuff right, but often we didn't get the feedback that we needed in a timely way to be able to know when we were missing some of the key things that our readers were interested in. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever, they don't allow you to do that anymore. Yeah. If you get something wrong, whether it's accuracy or tone, and tone is almost as important as accuracy, my God, you find out very quickly.
Yes.
Very quickly.
And in terms of then just getting back to approaching you, because everyone's going to be watching this and hopefully being really inspired again, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to approach whether it's some of your titles or regional newspapers or daily newspapers across the country, they're going to say, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, I've got a story, I know I've got a lifestyle story or a business to business kind of story. Should they take the time, or do you have like just a news desk that they send a generic email in, or should they take the time to find that specific person? Should they phone up and find a specific person? Do most of the regional newspaper websites have had to get in touch? What's the best way, really? Because I've interviewed journalists in the past and editors, and they can get like 300 and 400 press releases a day. I've had some editors say they can't be bothered to find out who we are and personalise that email to us. We can't be bothered to read it. So what's your take on that?
No, I think that's absolutely right. Emails into news desks are very hit and miss. In the end, newspapers, journalists are no different to anybody else. It's, my father used to say, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And actually building relationships of trust between the journalist and you, and breaking down the fear factor or whatever is absolutely key. So, you need eventually, however you start the process, you need eventually to pick up the phone and talk to a journalist and build a rapport with them, or you need to come into the office and see somebody face to face. It's not necessarily going to happen overnight. It's not something that you can do immediately, and you may get knocked back on it occasionally, but at the end of the day, you need a relationship with a name and a face of that newspaper that you trust and they trust you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And one final question. Do you share and work with other mediums in your area? So would you work with your local radio station, whether it be commercial or BBC? Do you kind of work with other newspapers? How does that work?
We don't actively work with the BBC or radio. We might work with them on a specific project, like a joint campaign or something, but we wouldn't share information with them.
Yeah.
But our information is syndicated to an agency who send that out nationally to all the national newspapers and all the other regional newspapers.
Yeah.
So effectively, once we publish it, it is being published as far as you want it to go.
Yeah. So that they could pick up on it and turn it in from a regional story or a local story into a national story.
Yes.
And what agency is it do you work with that submits that out?
Southwest News.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, because it's good for people to know that, you know, what can make a really good local regional story could turn into a national story in print that then could go on to a TV interview, into a radio interview, and it does literally have a snowball effect, doesn't it?
It can do. You know, people need to think about whether they want that to happen.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be careful, but yes, those opportunities exist. And actually, now that we're involved with an agency, that agency is actively trying to sell that story in.
Yes.
Whereas before, it had to be, you know, somebody else had to come across it and do something with that story to make it go any further.
Yeah.
Now, that agency are going through everything we do and are actively saying, who could we sell this to? Who would be interested in it? Let's change it so we know that it's in their style and it's in their format and it's, you know, it's Daily Mail territory or it's Sun territory or whatever. And let's push it to them and say, you know, do you want this story? It's really good. It'll really work for your audience.
Absolutely. No, it's great because obviously journalists get paid for writing articles, you know, and I think people can't get their head around that because obviously they desperately want their story covered, that they, again, don't understand that the newspapers will write, or, you know, a national newspaper will pay for a journalist that submitted an article that then they publish, you know, so it's money just change hands, and if it's a great story, it is genuine and win-win for everybody, isn't it?
Yes.
What's one final bit of advice you'd give to anyone that's, you know, has watched this video, that's new to PR, new to kind of approaching you, but they know that they've got a good business, they're genuinely helping people in their community, they've got some really great stories. What's a small piece of final parting advice you'd give?
Your story is almost certainly of interest, and that, hold on to that, you know. Lose the fear, lose the worry. Don't worry so much about the techniques. Don't try to be a journalist. Just understand what that story is and have the courage to talk to somebody about it.
Wonderful. Peter, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you start on when I end this, I'll have a chat to you in a minute. But thank you so much for your time and your interview. We look forward to speaking to you in the future.
Pleasure.
Thank you.